Rain of Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your rant line, rave line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there? Scratch, claw, up against the wall.
Can't explain it what I'm feeling right now, guys.
I can't believe it.
Let's open up that race line. Woohoo! Oh, I can't believe USC has hired Lincoln Riley. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rant Line Radio. After the USC loss to Washington, this is the Carcast after USC and Washington. The Trojans lose 52-42 in a crazy shootout that does not go USC's way because the Trojans did not get the stops when they needed to get the stops. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Rant of Troy and shoot us your emails, rantoftroy@fanside.com, phone number 818-643-7227, Second Whisper and Show. I'm your host, Michael Castillo, joined along with my co-host here in the Rant of Troy studio in Los Angeles, Alicia Artola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. It's a little low T Alicia there.
The Iron Cats in the chat said, "Need my therapy." Smash that like button. They also sent us a super chat, so cheers, the Iron Cats. We're here for some therapy. So smash that like button. We're get ready because there's some processing to do.
Yeah. Alicia, I'm just gonna run down some stuff. We're gonna pretend, do some little magic. You don't know anything about this game, okay? You don't know anything. If I told you SC will have gained 515 yards of total offense, what would your thought be?
They had a good night.
If I said SC threw for 300 yards, ran for 200 yards, what would go through your mind?
They had a good night.
What if I said SC was 50% on third downs?
That's a vast improvement from what they've been doing all season, and that probably meant they had a good night.
What if I said that Caleb Williams would throw for 300 yards and have no interceptions? 77% completions.
I would say that sounds like his best game of the season. That USC probably should have had a good night.
What if I said that SC was without Marshawn Lloyd, but still ran for 203 yards and 3 touchdowns?
I would have been very sad that Marshawn Lloyd wasn't playing, but also thought, wow, USC must have had a good night.
What if I said that Austin Jones had a season high 127 yards on 11 carries?
I would have said that he had a good night.
What if I said SC scored 42 points against the number 5 team in the country?
I would have said that's
where it starts to break down.
Yeah.
Because going in, you knew you were gonna need more than that.
I would have said that's not 60.
It's not 60,
which is literally what USC needed to win this game.
Yeah, it's not 60, and SC could have used 60 indeed. SC loses 52-42 in a night in which Dylan Johnson has 256 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns, the 5th most by a Washington running back in the history of the earth. The most by a USC, most allowed by a USC defense against the Washington team ever. The 52 points that Washington scores, the most they've ever scored against the Trojans, they eclipse their all-time, like the series goes back to 1923. Washington had more points in the first half tonight than they had in 100 years ever against SC.
Yeah. And USC scored 9 more points than Oregon did on this same Washington defense. And lost. And USC had 500 yards of offense and lost. And USC did what they needed to do for the most part and lost because you cannot win with this defense. You can't do it. I don't know. I don't know what. I've been critical of Caleb Williams at times this season. He didn't do the things that I was annoyed at earlier this season for the most part. Aside from maybe not handing the ball off more often in the second half. But like I said on Twitter, like, how am I supposed to get mad at USC not running the ball a bunch on offense in the second half when they're still scoring points on the drives?
Right.
They're not running the ball. Like, there's no if, ands, or buts. This is a game that was absolutely winnable. This is a game that was absolutely within reach of USC beating the number 5 team in the country. This season is absolutely in reach of USC being the number 5 team in the country. But the defense is as bad a defense as I have ever seen play football in Cardinal and Gold.
Yeah.
I was telling like you and other people that if you put the 2021 defense in this game, USC wins the game.
I mean, that the 2021 defense was pretty bad. But
yeah,
you know what the crazy thing is? We thought, oh, the 2021 defense is so bad they couldn't be worse in 2022, and
I
they
told
were.
people I've just gone through 2 years of Todd Orlando. I think Alex Grinch sounds pretty damn good based on what he did at Oklahoma. Well, I take it back. I am actively miserable watching this team. I told our buddy Jake from the What's Bruin show, I need that Madden feature where you can sim the defense and only experience the offense. I need that because there's no joy in watching. This defense is horrifically bad.
Yeah.
As Dalton in the chat pointed out, it was 199 yards for Washington running back Dylan Johnson before contact.
Yeah.
That is the most outrageous stat that I can possibly think of. A running back had 199 yards before contact. 199 yards before contact. What are we doing here? What is defense here? There isn't a single player on that field who did the job that needed to get done. USC Analytics had a tweet where USC's stop rate, which I believe in this instance is referring to plays where a defender makes a tackle and it counts as a stop for the defense, i.e., on first down, the offense gets less than 45 yards towards a first down. On second down, the offense gets less than 60% yards towards a second down. Or on third or fourth down, the offense doesn't get the first down. USC's stop rate was 4%. 4%.
Yeah.
Of plays where a defender made a stop.
The thing about the defense tonight is they dropped 8. We talked about it in the preview. Like, yeah, you should drop 8. That's what SC did. It did not work. And the thing that I don't understand is if you drop 8, how do you also give Romo Dunze 10 yards of space on a fourth down? If you drop 8, how are you also getting beats on screens every single time? How are you also allowing every single receiver to have all this cushion? Like, you can't do both of those things. It would have been one thing. Washington ran into light boxes all night. SC seemingly was trying to take away the deep ball to force Washington to drive down the field. I don't think that's a bad want, but you need to then not give up the big play on the ground, which SC did. You need to then, if you're going to take away try to take away the passing lanes with zone defense, you gotta be closer to defending passes. And SC wasn't. It was the combination of all those things that, ends up being put in a spot where Washington scores 52 because they score on just about every drive. And Lincoln Riley was talked about it on the post-game show on the radio. He was asked about, what went wrong, and he talks about, or where did SC lose the game, and he mentions, three plays. One of them in the first half, the play where on third down where Penix was scrambled, nearly gets sacked, rolls around to his left, has a little scramble drill. There's like 5 different defenders in the end zone, and he still drops it in a spot where there's no guy making a play on the ball. How can you have both of those things? How can both of those things exist? Right? Like it makes no sense to me.
It's why I come out of this game feeling extremely certain that failure to fire Alex Grinch in the next 48 hours is unforgivable.
Yeah.
I you can't have the last 3 weeks of play for USC defensively and say that that it's not catastrophic enough for it to change. I know that we have argued against the midseason firing the whole time, because what does it actually achieve substantively? You're not going to get better on defense by firing your defensive coordinator. But at this point, it is so catastrophic that if you do not make that move, if you do not make it clear that this is not acceptable, that doing your job this poorly is not something that has consequences, it sends the entire wrong message to the entire program, from players to fans to donors to everybody. It is beyond. It is just beyond. The game plan was bad. The in-game adjustments were bad. The individual play calls were bad. The execution was bad. The personnel decisions continue to be terrible. The whole thing is a cluster F of epic proportions that you cannot just go into next week and say, well, we're going to let it ride. You can't let it ride at this point. And like, it sucks because I have defended Lincoln Riley this whole way. I have preached reasonability, understanding why decisions get made and why they don't, understanding, the roll of the dice that was bringing Grinch back in the first place, understanding that didn't go Lincoln Riley's way, but that doesn't mean that the program is in dire straits. All of those things. I've been a defender of Lincoln Riley throughout this whole thing. But at a certain point, you lose me when you force me to watch this week after week after week and do nothing about it. Nothing substantive about it.
But I hear you, and I'm with you every step of the way, but what is there to do? Like, outside of saying that you fire Grinch, like nothing is going to actually change. You can't make once he came back, like the decision was made. Like
but you're also talking about setting a standard in your program. And if your standard is not being met and you just say, well, doop-to-doo, we just have to wait until the end of the season, doop-to-doo. Like I said, you are eroding trust. He has eroded every bit of trust that he has from the fan base. I don't know how he hasn't eroded trust in the locker room when you have players like Caleb Williams crying because the loss was such a moment of despair. When you have the players on offense who are going out there and doing their job and putting up points, and they have to take the blame personally because they fumbled once or they had to punt the ball once and that lost you the game. When on the other side of the ball, every single drive, it results in a score, except for 2. And like, I don't know how you keep the trust if you don't just say, you know what, this isn't working. This is not working. We need a change. We have to do something, anything to reset to reset expectations, to reset the standard. I agree with your sentiment that if you fire Grinch, you're probably not going to have a better defense. You're probably still going to lose the games that you're going to lose because your defense is this bad.
Right. But it also can't get worse.
At this point, what's going to get worse? At this point, Oregon's going to score 60 on you. Well, Washington nearly did too. Yeah. I don't know what else. I don't know what else you want from anybody if you're going to go into every game and concede the 52 points that you gave up in this game and concede basically everything possible on defense. And it's not just this one game, because Washington does have a good offense. It's the full picture of the season. How many more weeks of this? I pulled up some numbers. USC has been outgained despite the offense themselves gaining 400 yards in 4 games this season, including the last 3 games. USC had 401 yards, 497, and 515. Those are outstanding offensive numbers in the last 3 games. And they have given up 482, 527, 572. They have been outgained in all of these games, 2 losses and 1 narrow win. USC's opposition is averaging 436 yards per game. That would rank 35th nationally, in terms of if that was just one offense. 6 of USC's 10 opponents outgained their average versus USC. Of the 4 who didn't, Notre Dame was the only one who wasn't within 30 yards of outgaining their average. And that was because they had a bajillion turnovers and didn't have to gain yards because they got the ball on short fields every single time. This is historically, catastrophically, untenably terrible.
Yeah.
Like beyond terrible. You cannot continue and expect anybody to give you any benefit of the doubt. Lincoln Riley is having USC fans who had defended him the whole time turning on him now. He is creating doubt. He is creating uncertainty. Just fire the man and get it over with and prove to people that you understand. And, his post-game quote today was when he was asked about the handling the defense. He said, "I understand the question. I know it's y'all's job to ask it, but I'm not into the big picture questions right now. My job's going to try to beat Oregon next week and to coach what we have here. I know as a head coach, it all falls under my responsibility ultimately, and I don't shy away from that, and I never have. But there are times and places for those discussions, and those will happen at the appropriate time. Now is the appropriate time. Don't let this fester for another month. Don't do it. It's only going to make things worse for you. It's only going to make things worse for the players. It's only going to make things worse for the program. What donor wants to donate to the NIL arms when they're having to watch this? What fans are turning off the TV and are just going to choose to not watch for the rest of the season when they have to watch this? Just do it. The appropriate time is now. It was 3 weeks ago, but the appropriate time is now. I don't know what else to say. I have literally, you cannot find worse defensive performances.
No, you
not all
you
in one go. Not all in one go. USC has given up 300 yards rushing a handful of times in the last, 10 years. But how many times have they given up 300 yards rushing and the last week 500 yards and the week before that season highs and this and that and this and that? I've seen people talking about how USC creates All-Americans on the other side of the field. Yes. If you play USC, you're going to have a career game. Every single week, someone has a career game. What are you going to do? Nothing?
Well,
same thing?
I think at this point, I absolutely think that, you at least put out the PR statement that Iowa did, getting rid of Ference, right? Like little Ference. Like I think that is we've gotten to the point where I don't think that that's a crazy ask. I do think that like like I said, the idea of like a mid-season firing, I don't think it's going to necessarily change anything. I totally am with you about like it would be cathartic for people for Grinch to be fired or the press release to come out to say he's not returning and all those things. I get that. I don't think it actually solves anything except for feeling good. And when you're talking about like drumming up things like NIL and stuff, then yeah, that absolutely has value, like you said. I'm looking through the numbers here. This is first of all, this is the most yards per play SC has allowed since you want to take a guess?
The most yards per play USC has allowed since Cal last week. I don't know.
Tulane.
Yeah, Tulane. It was the first 300-yard game since Tulane.
I was expecting it to be further away from that, but no, it was there was the Tulane game, which is telling. Like we talked about after the Tulane game, like that should have been it. That should have been it for Grinch, and it wasn't, right? Riley took the gamble on bringing him back, and it did not work. It absolutely did not work. I'm looking up some other stats. This is insane to me. SC's yards per play against Washington, which was 8.2 tonight. The most Washington has allowed since Nick Holt was their defensive coordinator in 2011. That Alamo Bowl, remember that Alamo Bowl 67-56 that they lost to RG3, the shootout?
Mm-hmm.
That since that game, this is the most offensive damage that any team has put against Washington since then. 12 years. That is what SC did tonight on offense, and they lost. And for me, this is the biggest shame of all of this. This was a Heisman worthy performance from Caleb Williams tonight. He outplayed Michael Penix. I thought the receivers were good. I thought the running backs were good. Raleek Brown, coming off of a stretch of 8 games in which he did not play, looked good tonight, scored a touchdown. Darwin Barlow hasn't gotten a carry in 7 games. He has a couple of big runs, including a touchdown. Like, what SC did on offense tonight was incredible. And this is why, like, the idea of, like, I've seen comments, Lincoln Riley is a fraud. He's not a fraud because SC was able to do this on offense. The problem is you're not able to enjoy what he's been able to put together on offense because it ends up not being good enough because the way the defense is, you have to literally be perfect. It's impossible to be perfect. In this game, SC goes touchdown, punt, touchdown, 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 fumble, touchdown, touchdown, punt downs, and lose. That shouldn't happen. It shouldn't have, like, there's no way. Like, you were this dominant against the number 5 team in the country on offense, and having nothing to show for it it's unfathomable. And like, what is Caleb Williams supposed to do? Like, it's you can sit here and say, oh well, he shouldn't have fumbled. I mean, sure, yeah, but he also shouldn't be in a position to where he needs to be absolutely perfect, because you shouldn't expect anyone to be perfect.
Michael Penix gets to throw an interception in the red zone and still win the game,
right,
by 10 points.
Yeah, by 10 points,
and get to lead the Heisman race.
Right, when Caleb Williams outplayed him tonight, and
there's no reason Caleb shouldn't be in the thick of the Heisman race. There's no reason that USC shouldn't be 9-1 right now and going into a game against Oregon with college football playoff implications, except that the defense is horrifically bad.
Yeah. Tim in the chat says the offense has to be perfect at minimum for the team to have a shot. Yeah. It's a terrible place to live, right? Like, you don't want to you don't want to have to demand perfection from anybody, right? Like, you shouldn't expect that from yourself either. And But that's the situation that SC has found themselves in, because the defense just is what the defense is. And it's frustrating because, you know what the defense is. And that's why there's part of me that's like, well, you had to know. You had to know that you needed to score 50 points tonight to win this game. And if SC scores 50 points, you can make the argument that they do win this thing. But you also shouldn't have to. Like, you shouldn't have to score 50 points. Like, you can sit here and blame the fumble. You can sit here and blame the holding penalty on what could have been the go-ahead drive. But you shouldn't have had to need those things. That's not why you ultimately lost, even if that's what put SC behind the sticks at the end. Like, if they get any stop anywhere else, it's a completely different game.
It's tough to nitpick the offense.
Yeah.
When the defense
it feels sort of out of line to nitpick the offense when they put together, like, this legitimately was one of the greatest offensive performances you'll ever see USC put together.
Yeah.
And they got nothing to show for it.
When Washington's average gain on third down was 10.4 yards.
Yeah.
We can nitpick.
What was your favorite third down allowed? Got to be the scramble touchdown.
The scramble touchdown was bad, but like it's not one.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Like, you can't even point to this and say like, oh, it was just 1 or 2 plays away, because in reality you can substitute a dozen different 1 or 2 plays.
Well, you can't say that for the defense at all.
No, because the defense was maybe 1 or 2 good plays in the entire game.
Right.
And it was to a man. Like, there was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing. That there was Eric Gentry has the tip and Christian Roland Wallace gets the interception. So that's one play.
Yeah.
Bear Alexander has one good tackle for loss in the backfield. And they forced a field goal. Like, that's
the crazy part is, forcing the field goal nearly wins them the game.
Yeah.
Because I've seen comments in the chat about how, like, all the games that SC has lost, save for the Notre Dame game, were winnable. And yes, that is absolutely true. Absolutely the case. Both games against Utah last year were winnable. The Cotton Bowl was winnable. The Utah game 2 weeks ago was winnable. Tonight was winnable. Absolutely. That's 5 games right there of the 6 Lincoln Riley losses that have been winnable. And the crazy thing is, yeah, SC could have won all those games despite this defense, just by changing 1 or 2 things. And so, like, this is why I know people get so frustrated when Lincoln Riley says we're a play or 2 away. Like, he's not wrong. Because it is 1 or 2 plays, and the SC would have won these games despite being this bad, which only reinforces the point that that's how close SC, I think, can be with the right defensive coordinator hire. Because if you get the right if you go out and get Jim Leonard, Dave Aranda, whatever, and we talked about it before, you go to a 20-point defense. A 20-point defense with this offense wins a national championship.
Yeah. Yeah. Then that's why I don't want to get it twisted. There's a lot of conversations about Lincoln Riley that are turning very dark and very, very critical.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get it twisted that there isn't anything good about this team. This offense is outstanding.
Well, that's the second part. Is that not to cut you off here? Like the defense, like you said, takes away the joy of watching the offense, right? Because it takes away any of the positivity here. Like, I can sit here and say that this is a Heisman performance and all those things, but like, you can't actually enjoy it, can you?
Every touchdown is just okay, took care of business. Now race. I had people DMing me going like, it's hard to enjoy touchdowns when I know that the defense is going to be coming back on the field next. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It takes the whole it takes everything away from it when the defense is this bad.
Yeah.
And again, like, it would be one thing if it was just, if this was the outlier, if this was the 2017 Notre Dame game where the defense had been pretty decent for most of the season, and then they just blew up and couldn't get a stop against Notre Dame, and it was just one of those nights where your defense just didn't have it. That would be one thing if it was that, but it's every single week with this defense.
Yeah.
Every single week. The best defensive performance of the season came against a Notre Dame team that had a bajillion turnovers and still scored a bajillion points.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, and that's the other thing is like, Trek Ranger in the chat says the defense gave up 17 explosive plays in this game alone. It was actually 18. It's 18 plays, explosive plays in this game. So, like, what was the where was the sitting back? Where was the dropping it? Like, how are you giving up that many big plays?
Yeah. They didn't give up the 50-yarder through the air.
Yeah, the longest passing play was 32 yards.
Yeah, but they gave up 15, 19, 15, 19, 22, 32, 20.
Yeah.
Well, you can't give those up if you're dropping 8.
Yeah.
That's
the
can't.
whole point of dropping 8 is to not do that. And that's exactly what they did, while simultaneously giving up 9 rushing plays of 10 plus yards.
Yeah.
So, like, where they didn't find a middle ground. They didn't find like, the dropping 8 didn't work. I'm fairly confident that if they had tried the uber aggressive blitz on every down kind of thing, that they just would have still given up 52 points or more. Like, I don't know what the right approach would be when your defense is this bad at executing across the board.
This is the thing for me too. I'm looking at this in the stat book. Washington gained 216 rushing yards on big gains, which for rushing is a gain of 10 plus. SC had more. SC had more gains of 10 plus yards on the ground and lost.
Yeah.
Like that just needs to put into perspective, like, how SC's offensive performance was as good as the defensive performance was bad, if not even more so, and SC still lost. Want to give big shout out to a couple of super chats we've gotten. Irvine Cattle Rant says, "Thank you for expressing my frustration better than I can. Fight on." We got a super chat from West Texas Mike. Says, "Here's $10 for Alicia's rants. I felt like I was back in the Clay Helton era for a moment, back when I first discovered Reign of Troy."
We don't want that, West Texas Mike. We don't want to be back in that era.
DJ says, we just don't have the bodies on both lines of scrimmage. The game is won or lost right there. We simply get pushed around. Yeah. SC gave up so much ground.
That's the most frustrating thing defensively, is when you're dropping 8 and rushing 3, and they can triple team Bear Alexander, which essentially takes him out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 2 pass rushers on the line of scrimmage are completely bottled up.
Yeah.
In one-on-one, they are getting zero pressure on Michael Penix. And that's the other thing. Like, I think I put this on Twitter. The frustrating thing here is that Washington's defense is not good and was not good tonight. They got torn to shreds by USC.
Mm-hmm.
But they at least made USC work for it a lot of the time. They got pressure on the quarterback occasionally. They forced him to spin out of the pocket. They forced him to make plays with his legs. They got to him critically on forcing the fumble. They got to him on the stop where they forced the punt. Like, those were the plays that won the game for Washington in the end, because their defense stepped up and their pressure got to the quarterback. Michael Penix didn't have to worry about the defensive line for most of the night. USC did not have him running for his life. They didn't have him. They barely even forced him to have to speed up a throw half the time. And every time that they did force him to have to just chuck something down because he had to get the ball away, USC's DBs got hit with penalties, pass interference, holding, something. It was something every time. So it was so easy for Washington, especially a Washington team that is the number one passing offense in the country, that has chosen not to run this entire season, that has not cared or committed to their run game this entire season. And USC put out a defense out there that was like, okay, we know that you can still tear us up through the air, but also if you want to rush for 316 yards on the ground, by all means go ahead.
But you see,
and they did that, and USC didn't adjust to that. USC didn't come up with a solution to that. USC didn't. It was completely, like I said, the in-game adjustments were non-existent or completely ineffective.
Yeah, I think it's the right calculated thing to make Washington run on you when they haven't run, but it shouldn't have been this much of a gashing performance where they run for 199 yards before they're touched, and it also shouldn't have taken that long to have any sort of adjustment, which SC did. And also, if you're going to let them run on you, you need to stop the pass in some sort of way, and SC did not do that. It would have been one thing if Washington would have just chosen to run and Odunze wasn't open. You know what I mean? And it was the Clancy Pendergast thing of like, we're going to take this thing away and then just get beat the other way. But that's not what happened here too, because as much as you talk about, I think Caleb Williams outplayed Michael Penix. That's not because Michael Penix played poorly. It's because Caleb Williams, I thought, just had an incredible performance tonight. Michael Penix still threw for 256 yards, and he found open dudes all night.
Penix didn't have to.
He didn't have to be crazy impressive.
Because this running back ran for 256 yards, 199 of which
he didn't have to make the miracle
before
plays.
Contact.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see the defense when they're in this state. But if you're in a state that has gambling, then maybe you can join DraftKings, because Trojan fans, DraftKings is running a new promotion that you won't want to miss. New users can place a $5 bet to instantly claim $200 in bonus bets. You'll also be rewarded with a separate no sweat single game parlay every single day. When you opt in, all you have to do is use our code Reign of Troy, and using that code Reign of Troy not only gets you the bonuses, but helps directly support this very podcast. So if you're considering signing up for DraftKings, use that code Reign of Troy to maximize your first bets and parlays. Of course, the offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly and check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. Was that one good? I feel like that one's good.
That was good. Yeah.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into the mailbag. You guys in the chat, light up your questions, fire away, and let's get to it.
You've got mail.
All right. I'm running through some stuff here that we've seen in the chat so far that we haven't gotten back to it. Scott says, me legitimately thinking Alex Grinch deserved another year to prove himself, quote, in all caps, if I could turn back time. Yeah.
But this was not the wrong mentality necessarily. Like we got it. After the Tulane game, I know we talked about how I personally would just move on from Alex Grinch, but I understood if the idea was to bring him back, to continue recruiting, to get his guys in, and to see what he could do. Because the track record at Oklahoma, while not great, wasn't this bad.
It wasn't this.
It wasn't even close to this.
Right.
So it made sense at the time in a certain way, even if we said at the time that it was a risk, that Riley was going to let it ride, and that he was betting Caleb Williams' final year on it, and that could go very wrong. My issue with that decision is if you were going to make that decision to let it ride with Alex Grinch, I needed Lincoln Riley to have a shorter leash than he has had, because it was apparent weeks ago that the defense was not good enough. And that the train wreck that was coming was ultimately coming. And it was making a Utah offense that hadn't been able to score on anybody all season look like world beaters. It was a Cal offense that hasn't been able to be competitive very often this season, make them look like world beaters.
Yeah.
Like, make every quarterback that USC plays look like a Heisman candidate. And then USC gives up, 49 points to Cal. Cal turns around the next week and plays Oregon, and what do? 19 points, 286 yards, total yards, 3 of 14 third down efficiency.
Yeah.
Oregon doesn't even have an elite defense in the Pac-12. Oregon is not Utah or Oregon State or UCLA level defense. They're just a competent defense. And that is why Oregon is alive in the college football playoff. In the college football playoff race, because they have a competent defense.
Well, they're number 2 in the conference in yards per play.
Okay, yeah.
But to your point, like, they're not UCLA's defense. I think it's we can agree is better. But yeah, you're right. Every team that SC has played, they've put together an incredible game, and they've put together season highs, and they've had a dude just completely go off. How many weeks? It was Omarion Miller against Colorado. It was Jaden Ott last week. It was Bryson Barnes against Utah. It was Scatterbo against Arizona State. Like, it's somebody new every week. Who's it going to be next week? We already know Bucky and Nix. So it's who else is it going to be over there? Like, it's going to be somebody, right? Like that's just how it is at this point, because SC has no answers, and absolutely no answers at all. Kaylee in the chat says, what haunts me is that the last 3 Utah games were winnable. Tulane was winnable. Tonight's game was winnable. The only loss I can accept is the one against Notre Dame, even though that was a tough away game.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. The Notre Dame game is the outlier here, because the Notre Dame game was really, and maybe USC loses anyways. It's sort of hard to say, but Caleb Williams was uncharacteristically bad in that game. The offensive line got completely worked, and Caleb threw a bunch of interceptions, and the turnovers in that game change any evaluation we could have of what the truth of that game was. Gets lost when you have, what did it come out to be, 5 or 6 turnovers? It was just a complete, you were just going to lose that game if you had 5 turnovers. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Every other game aside from that, it doesn't fit that mold. And the Utah was defense and decision making with the 2-point conversions. You barely got out of dodge with Cal.
Yeah.
And then with Washington, like, I don't even think there were any major, I would argue the only major decision making mistake in this game was in the second half. USC should have run the ball more often. And maybe that changes the outcome of the the punt drive after the half. I mean, the punt drive in the fourth quarter. Maybe the outcome of the punt drive in the fourth quarter changes if on 3rd and 14 you run the ball and get 8 yards and set up a 4th and short and be able to go for it. But you know how nitpicky that is?
That's extreme hindsight.
How revisionist history that is? You know how, like, silly it is to say, like, that's the closest USC got to a decision-making mistake in this game. This was all pure, your defense cannot get a stop.
SC in the second half, first drive, 8 plays, 80 yards, touchdown. Second drive, 7 yards, 83 yards, touchdown. The third drive, they would have scored a touchdown if not for a holding call. Takes away the thing, puts them behind the sticks on a 3rd and long. It killed off the drive. I don't think we can sit here and say that the offense screwed up the game in the second half. I mean, technically, yeah, they didn't score on the last 2 drives. If they score 2 touchdowns on the last 2 drives, SC wins the game.
But do they?
But
do they? Because let's say USC does score on their last 2 drives touchdowns. What evidence do we have that Washington wasn't just going down the field?
Well, it depended.
Then it would have come down to how much time is on the clock. And
right.
and now you're just playing with that.
Right. Yeah. And unlike Bryson Barnes, Penix would have been comfortable throwing the ball in the last minute.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Eric says over under Grinch is actually kept for the rest of the season.
Can I give my honest opinion is I do not believe that Lincoln Riley is going to fire. Based on the quote that I read earlier, Lincoln Riley is waiting until after the UCLA game to make any decisions about staff. And the only plus side is USC has a bye the last week of the season. So that decision can get made in 2 weeks.
Well, this is why, I understand why it's cathartic to fire Grinch this second. I understand that, yes, it's warranted and all those things. I think we're all in agreement on that. It's just in the grand scheme of things, if it happens today or 2 weeks from today, for the most part, I don't think it matters.
Either way, it's going to be painful watching these last 2 games.
Sure. Danny says Cal scored 35 on us last year, by the way. The gamble that Riley made was with someone with 0 upside and all downside. That's a terrible gamble to make. Yeah, we talked about it last year that after the Cotton Bowl, I am someone who doesn't want to, I don't think you should fire anybody in year 1 of anything. I think you allow them more time than that because year 1 is ridiculous amount of time to fire anyone unless you are historically bad at something. I hate it when NFL teams fire coaches after 1 year, but you have to be historically bad to get fired after year 1 of something. But I think it was warranted last year because the defense was historically bad last year. And they're historically worse this year. So yeah, I think it would have been warranted if they would have actually absolutely done it. And yes, you're right. It was a gamble that didn't have much of an upside because your hope was that SC was going to turn from a 30-point defense last year to a 27-point defense. And realistically, if SC is a 27-point defense right now, they're sitting here at 9-1.
Yeah.
So I guess touche, but at the same point, does that make you more likely to win a national championship? No, because you need to get down to a 20-point defense. Mm-hmm. If you have a 20-point defense with this offense, you're in the playoff. But SC doesn't have that. Yeah. SC right now has for all intents and purposes, we talked about a 28-point last week. I said we need to at least split it to 35. It's a 42 points defense, and when you're playing an elite team like Washington, that means 52.
Yeah,
it does, and it's sort of a miracle that it wasn't more than that. To be honest,
and it applies to Oregon next week.
Yes.
And UCLA, a team that is struggling to put up points against most teams, not named Stanford. UCLA is going to threaten to score 40 points at this rate. Okay,
you want to know my crazy thought? Maybe you're going to think I'm nuts. I have more confidence that SC beats UCLA based on tonight's performance.
Oh yeah.
It's significantly more.
I think that it really depends on.
I mean, small bar, right? It can, in the sense of that isn't whether SC goes 9-4 or 8-3 at this point or 8-4, 9-3 is sort of splitting hairs, but
it's more likely to be a game like
the Utah game,
like the Utah game where
sure,
it's close because your defense is bad enough to make their offense look better
yes,
than they are, but you're still, the right game management away from winning that game
yeah,
because your offense is going to be capable of putting up. Your offense should put up as
should
much
be
as
able to
anybody has put
outscore
up
them.
on
Yeah.
the good defense that you face. Just like the annoying thing about Utah is that USC put up more points and yards and everything on Utah than anybody else has managed this season,
Yeah.
up until Oregon, who really took it to Utah. But even like Oregon taking it to Utah was still only 35 points. So, yeah, that was frustrating in itself. But
Yeah.
I don't think UCLA is a definite loss at this point.
No.
Not with the offense playing as well as it
We'll,
does.
we'll see. We'll see though next week if SC absolutely no shows next week because they've mentally checked out or something, which I'm not going to bet on. I think that this team has showed enough. There's been enough reasons for them to check out of things, and they haven't. They are still fighting, and all the players I think in there are still bought in, and all those things. But if that changes, certainly it's something that you could just revisit. Lamont says it's clear to me that the scheme is too difficult for the players. We have, even if the scheme is different, you still have to deal with all the penalties. So how do we solve that issue? Is it the scheme too difficult? Is it just the wrong scheme? I don't know because I frankly do not understand what's happening on defense, period. Like outside of just like the missed tackles.
People who know who like I saw Sua Cravens and others like tweeting like they don't even know what's going on. They don't understand what the defense is even trying to accomplish half of the time. They don't understand what the coverage is supposed to be or what the gap scheme is supposed to be because none of it makes sense because either guys are playing it so poorly or they're so
well, then it's been taught poorly.
Well, that's what's very clear is that the penalties get cleaned up if technique is being taught more clearly or those players are being put in a position where they don't have to feel the need to grab hold of a jersey in order to complete the play. It's just coaching. Like at a certain point, it's just coaching. Now, I think that there are players on the field for USC who should not be on the field for USC that are not USC caliber if USC is intending to compete for Pac-12 titles. But the decision to have those players on the field is also coaching. And there are players on the field who are far more talented than what they are showing, and they look completely lost. I saw somebody in the chat talking about how like Damani Jackson looks lost. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He looks completely lost. He looks like he has no idea what he's supposed to be doing.
The number of times pre-play that guys are just pointing around.
Christian Roland Wallace loses his mind on every single play because something is a concern to him.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And I don't know how to read that.
I don't know if that's a him problem or a defensive problem, but like at a certain given what the defense is doing, it feels like a defense problem that like he has to lose his mind pre-snap because something he sees something that he's concerned about.
Yeah.
I just think that there's a lot of things that don't make any sense to me personnel wise, coverage wise. It's very clear to me that the exotic coverages are not being processed properly by a lot of the players on defense. That's when you have sort of the broken plays, the broken coverages. That's to me is the players aren't confident in what their job is on any given play, and it shows. The missed tackles and all of that kind of stuff is again, it feels like a player confidence thing. Now, even the great USC defenses that we've watched in the past have had missed tackles, but the rate at which USC players miss tackles right now is very clear that positionally they don't know where they're supposed to be.
Right.
They're not reacting quickly because they don't feel confident in what they're doing. They highlighted on the broadcast on one of the long touchdown runs that Kalen Bullock hesitated before running downfield to go and try to stop the running back. That hesitation is born out of not knowing what you're supposed to do on any given play. That hesitation puts you in a position to take a bad angle, and a bad angle puts you in a position to miss a tackle. Like, these are all interconnected.
Yeah. Yeah, none of it makes sense to me. Lamont says, is anyone else getting Biggie Marshall vibes when you watch Damani play? All the hype coming in, but never lives up to that hype. I mean, yes, I think when you talk about like 5-star talent, you expect those guys to be the focal points of your team on offense and defense, wherever that guy fits in, right? I don't think you've gotten that type of production out of Damani at all. But I would say I don't know that this is a Domani Jackson thing. When what 5-star guy has SC gotten 5-star play out of on defense in the last decade? Like, this is just Adoree Jackson? Like, that's it?
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's a very good question to ask, though.
Yeah, because at that point, I'm like, I don't know that it's on him. I think it's on SC's lack of ability to develop their dudes from coaching staff to coaching staff to coaching staff over and over and over again, especially on defense, to have those issues. And then you look at it. I also think that, Biggie Marshall, I think if he was a 4-star talent, I don't think that he would have gotten the scorn that he's gotten as a 5-star guy.
Mm-hmm.
You look back and he had 6 interceptions in his career, 17 pass breakups as an underclassman, 10 in 2017, 9 as a senior, and then like you pull up Damani Jackson's numbers and they're just not even remotely comparable. But nobody's making those plays on this team. So is that Damani Jackson's fault, or is it the scheme? Is it the lack of development? Is it all those things? I think it's a little bit of column A, B, and C, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
So, Sean from beautiful Austin, Texas says, why wasn't Grinch made available to the media? None of the coordinators, none of the coaches or coordinators are necessarily made available. So the way that it used to work that in the press room, the head coach would come in with a couple of players, and then all the media would stand outside of the locker room, and you'd wait for the coaches and the players to walk out. Sometimes you saw the coaches, sometimes you didn't. It was hit and miss on the coaches, but you'd usually get all the players, and you could sort of like a free for all. You could talk to them as they walked out of the Coliseum. That's no longer the case under Lincoln Riley. Now you can only talk to the players in the press room itself, and so you're only available to talk to the players that are made available and the coaches that have been made available. And I don't believe the coaches have been made available the same way. And so I get the idea of like, well, they're hiding Grinch, but I don't think that would be the case no matter what. Like, SC, I think, could be undefeated right now, and the defense could be incredible, and I don't think Grinch would also be available to the media in the same way either.
Yeah.
So I think this is sort of what they want.
I will say, like, Clancy Pendergast would come and stop and talk to the media.
Yeah.
He didn't always. Players and coaches have ways to avoid having to do that, but
yeah.
But at a certain point, If you want to make the argument that you should keep your job, maybe you should be in the firing line and not your players.
Yes, but I'm also going to ask you, what can he also say?
That's true, because
There's
it's
not a
like
single
Lincoln
thing he
Riley
can
can say anything.
Well, this is why, like, I know that people are upset about Lincoln Riley's press conferences, but what can he honestly say that will satisfy you? Nothing. The thing that you want him to say, he can't say. He can't get up there and say, "Yeah, the defense sucks, and I got to fire Alex tomorrow." And like, he's not going to say that. Like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
And if a head coach did that, while it might be cathartic to hear the thing that you absolutely want to hear, like, that's an unprofessional coach. So like, you're not going to hear those things. And so, and you know, there was I was listening to the on my drive home, I was listening to the call-in show, and there was a caller who called in and wanted to talk to Stuart Cravens about, like, why aren't the coaches asked hardball questions? And so the rebuttal was like, okay, well, what was the hardball question you wanted to ask? I'll ask him what they're going to fix. He's been asked that. Like, they've been asked those questions. The answer is not satisfying. So, like, it's not that the lack of questions are there. It's that there's no answer that's going to be satisfying for you, because he can't just say, well, everything and blah blah. Like, if Lincoln Riley was throwing his players under the bus like Mike Leach did, like, that might be cathartic for a minute, but that doesn't necessarily, like, that doesn't make it better. It does.
Yeah, and it's why I'm trying to avoid the temptation to look at the quotes and read into the quotes and say anything about the quotes and all that. And I didn't avoid that temptation on the question about the defense, but
sure,
that's because that quote does inform us that, again, I will say, Lincoln Riley is going to fire Alex Grinch.
There's nothing. There was nothing
a matter
in there
of timing. What he said in that quote is essentially telling us that it is just a matter of timing.
Yeah.
I disagree with the timing that I am expecting, but it is a matter of timing.
Yeah.
And yeah, when it comes down to it, there's nothing that they can say that can make anybody feel better, unless those words are, Alex Grinch is no longer my defensive coordinator. And even then, we still have to sit through an Oregon game where you can't fix this defense that quickly. So you're sort of stuck.
Yeah. And what, going off of what you said, the quote was, there was nothing in there that sounded to me like he's not making the change at defensive coordinator. So yeah, I know that doesn't, he's not cursing him out like people want him to say. But I also don't think there's any indication that he's not going to do what people want him to do. Just might not be on the literal timeline that I think a lot of people want it to be, which, to be fair, it should have been last year. Yeah, I think that's very clear now. Absolutely. It was clear then when we talked about that it was SC was well within their right to do it last year, and they didn't. With more hindsight, it's now even, underlined and highlighted, circled, painted over, all those things. LA Fred says, can you explain to me, WTF was Gentry in the 3-point stance at linebacker when he was 4 yards off the ball in that play in the second quarter?
Again, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. My thought was maybe he just fell over and that's my only, the most logical explanation to me is that he tipped over and ended up in a 3-point stance and just didn't, what else is there to say? I don't know.
There's
I don't know.
There's a lot of questions. Like I said, none of the defense makes any sense to me at all. Lamont says, I believe the way Riley used Relique tonight, all but guaranteed him hitting the portal. If Riley put him in with Zachariah Branch at the same time, that could have shown him that there was a plan to use him. I wonder, we saw the thing on Thursday. We talked about it in our bonus episode for members only here on YouTube when we talked on Thursday about Raleek Brown tweeting that he was going to play. We were wondering if it was just the redshirt thing or what. I think in hindsight, I think it has a lot to do with the absence of
Marshawn Lloyd
than anything else, especially when you saw Barlow in there too. That makes me think that it's all about that, about getting, saving some breathers for Austin Jones, because it didn't look like Raleek Brown was necessarily a featured component of this offense. But at the same time, how can we sit here and say that it should have been any other way when SC put up the dominating performance on offense that they did,
Yeah, and for the record, Riley confirmed after the game that the staff knew that Marshawn Lloyd wouldn't play midweek, which sort of goes in line with Raleek tweeting when he did that this was going to be going forward. So, I think that was very much just tied to the personnel thing. I'm with you that I would love for Raleek Brown to stay and see what he could do. He adds a dynamic in that backfield that USC used to get a touchdown in this game, and he ran the ball well when they handed off to him between the tackles. I would love to see more of him, but it's also very difficult to convince somebody to stay when there are a million mouths to feed and most players aren't getting what they would imagine they want. I mean, just think about Dorian Singer can barely buy a couple of catches in any game. Brendan Rice is having an outstanding season, caught his 10th touchdown of the season, and he still can't pick up more than 2 catches in a game.
Well, he could have gotten another one.
Well, he could have gotten another one if he didn't drop it. But Austin Jones is out there averaging 11.5 yards per carry. I don't know that Raleek Brown is the end all be all kind of situation where not making him a featured part of the offense is the reason why you're losing games. That's not the reason why you're losing games. If he could play defense, maybe that would help. I don't know.
Yeah. LA Fred in the chat said that Barlow got two touches, a 40-yard run and a 4-yard touchdown, then no more. Yes. He could have gotten
Darwin Barlow
more run, but also Austin Jones was incredible tonight, averaging 11 yards a pop too. So I think any of those guys could have gotten more carries.
Realistically, I wanted more carries across the board for the running backs.
Yeah.
But those carries didn't need to go to Darwin Barlow or Raleek Brown.
Could have been anybody.
I would have been really happy with 17 carries for Austin Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Darwin Barlow is one of my favorite, just pops up and looks like a dog kind of players who will just never get his shot. And I feel very bad for him because I think he could be a perfectly productive running back for USC. But it's never his shot.
Kind of not in the same way, because we talked about it before. He's like sort of the Broderick Green.
Yeah.
Where in 2008 you'd see Broderick Green in the fourth quarter, you're like, man, if this guy started, could you imagine? And then you remember all the other running backs ahead of him, and you're like, yeah.
Darwin Barlow is like a way better James Toland, where it's like when he gets his carries, he does a good job.
Yeah,
but he's not the main man, and will never be the main man in a USC offense.
Yeah. Galib says, how much does Iowa put on our defense?
That is the scary thing, because
I think that's my new want. I want to see it. Seriously, let's get the bowl game. Let's get an USC Iowa bowl game Where can we make it happen? Is it the Holiday Bowl?
Iowa scored 41 points on Western Michigan. That is their season high. Their second season high is 26 against Michigan State. So let's say 30.
The movable object against the stoppable force.
Yeah. They have not given up more than 16 points.
I want to see it.
Oh, I guess they gave up 31 to Penn State.
That legitimately, would that not be entertaining?
Entertaining is a word that you could use that I don't know that I would go as far to use.
If you're gonna watch anything, don't you want to see something interesting in a bowl game?
Intriguing, absolutely. Would I take an Iowa matchup over an Oklahoma matchup any day of the week and twice on Sunday? Absolutely. Would I call that entertaining though? I don't know about that.
Yeah, West Texas Mike says that the Holiday Bowl is the ACC now. Yeah, so whatever bowl is the Big Ten, whatever it is. I don't remember, but make it Iowa. Make it Iowa. That would be great. Would be fascinating. All right. Ilium 55 says, what kills fans is the constant repetition of silly coach speak that we're one play away or whatever. People get tired of it. It's like Helton's look at the tape. Yeah, I think that coach speak is absolutely one of those things that, drives people nuts because it's coach speak.
Yes, but coach speak happens after wins too, and no one complains when Kirby Smart comes out of games saying, "Oh, my team's so resilient," or Nick Saban comes out of games saying, "My guys fought so hard," or whatever, because you're feeling good because you won the game, and what the coach says afterwards doesn't hit you the same way because you're just so happy that you won the game. Coach speak happens across the board after every loss for every coach. There isn't a coach out there who isn't doing some form of coach speak, unless you want to talk about someone like Deion Sanders, who breaks the mold and not necessarily in a way that I think is always the most productive. Coach speak is way more productive than what Deion Sanders sort of approach has.
It's the Mike Leach thing. People love Mike Leach, loved Mike Leach because, rest in peace, because of you'd ask him about anything, you'd ask him about the Roman Empire in a press conference and he'd start talking about the Roman Empire. But he did that as a distraction because as a reason not to let you ask football questions. And when you ask the football questions, he'd talk about like his players' fat girlfriends, which is an actual Mike Leach quote. And like, again, while that might be cathartic in the moment, if you're crazily upset, that's not something that you actually need to say in a press conference. So, Damon says, I think one of the reasons why some are questioning Riley is because there's been a regression since last season, which is alarming since he's been regarded as a top-notch coach. Yeah, I think that absolutely. I think we can talk about regression. One thing that I thought was positive tonight was I thought the offensive performance looked so good that it took away what I thought was offensive regression. I thought they proved tonight that they were just as good as last year on offense. That doesn't make up for the defense, obviously, but because I think the defense, if anything, is the same as last year, but realistically worse.
Yes.
You can make the argument that the schedule has just gotten harder, but I think the defense is worse than last year.
Yes, I think the defense is worse than last year. I also think that Caleb threw the ball better in this game than he has for a few weeks. And, I've been going off about the pinky. I didn't notice the same kind of errant throws that we've been seeing from him in this game. The closest thing he got to errant throws was just overthrowing deep shots. But that's why deep shots are very hard to complete, because you will occasionally, put it outside of the reach of your receiver. And those were not inexplicably errant the way that we have seen in other games. So that was a real positive. It also is a lot easier to have your offense be effective when you have a when you have a run game that the opposing defense has to pay attention to, and USC established the run early in the first half, and that very much helped. And to the broader point, though, the idea that the regression with Lincoln Riley, I think, there's a valid criticism of, again, the standard that you want him to be setting in the football program. And when your defense has regressed as far as the defense has in a year when you were banking on the defense getting better, even just a little bit better, and not having a stronger reaction to that, I get why it concerns people.
Yeah.
I think Lincoln Riley is doing this to himself by not taking it more seriously, that people are starting to not take him seriously because of the defense. I 100% think that is perfectly fair. I don't think that the offense is still like the reason why I'm still on the Lincoln Riley train is that the offense is still one of the best offenses in the country, and that is the thing that Lincoln Riley has the strongest input on.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the season, it started to get worrisome because the offense did look like it was very, very shaky. But the whole time with that, I personally felt that if the offensive line settled down and Caleb stopped having the random, like if Caleb just threw the ball better, that the offense would come around. It's also why I'm not worrying about 2024 or 2025 or whatever, not worrying about the future without Caleb Williams, aside from the fact that I recognize that he is an incredibly special talent. Everyone should appreciate his talent for what it is, appreciate his passion for the game for what it is, and hold on to that for as long as we get to watch him play football. But even when he's gone, I'm still very confident that USC will still have a very effective offense because that is what Lincoln Riley does, regardless of what quarterback he has behind center. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think the other thing is when you look at the offense, I think the offense struggled in the middle of the season. Yes, it was against very good defenses. They struggled against Arizona. They struggled against Notre Dame, and they struggled against Utah. And I think at this point, we can say that Arizona has a good defense. They've sort of proven that is the case, even though none of us thought that coming into this season. But I think SC on offense has responded to that. They made the changes on the offensive line, and I think that like they have gotten through that part where they were sort of stuck in the mud. I think the last 2 weeks have kind of shown that. Mind you, last week they still punted the ball 7 times, right? Like it's still a work in progress, but I think tonight showed that like they are getting better on offense. They are fighting the way through these things. The offensive line tonight, yeah, they gave up 3 sacks, but those are the only tackles for loss at all. Like they were great in run blocking, and this was an offensive line that struggled to run block against Notre Dame. They were great in that. The sack adjusted rushing yards per carry was 9.7. That's insane. That's insane to do that against a team that's ranked in the top 5. And I know that Washington's defense isn't in the top 5. They were a top 30 defense, but we talked about it before. Like that's all you need with an offense that is as good as theirs. And if SC had one of them, they wouldn't be in the position that SC is in. Let's go to a question from Sean. Hey, can we talk about the flea flicker play? I think I'm going to watch that 20 times this week as a salvo. Here's the thing. I am so frustrated about this defensive performance because I could sit here and gush about this offensive performance all night, and I don't think people want to hear that. Like because people are so upset about the defense, right? Like, but yes, we should talk about these things. The flea flicker was incredible. the design, like first of all, I'm curious your thoughts because I have thoughts about how the play. Give me a rundown in your brain, some stream of consciousness, replay it in your head. What were you thinking as it was going on?
The thing that made it so great is that it was extremely believable for things that we've seen USC do.
Yes.
Where they're trying to get a little bit too cute by stringing it out.
It was self-aware.
The offensive line sort of lets people a little bit through. USC doesn't run screens, so this is not on purpose. And they're going to hand it off to Zach Branch, and it's going to be sort of telegraphed, and he's going to get just sort of stuck and then try to, like, I thought this is Zach Branch trying to get too cute and trying to do too much by cutting back, and then he pitched it, and I was in that moment as the pitch was happening, it all the puzzle pieces just came together in a beautiful little bundle of this was on purpose. God, I hope someone downfield is open. And then Caleb goes and Taj is wide open. And then, but also Taj, being the short king that he is, has to leap up to grab the ball. And the whole time I'm thinking like, oh my God, don't drop it, don't drop it, don't drop it. And then he catches it. And then I'm thinking, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. And then he keeps his feet. And just every step of that play was wonderful.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I think Caleb was so shocked that it worked so good that he was too excited on the throw.
Yeah.
So from the press box, I never saw I couldn't see the flea flicker part. So I saw Zach Branch going. I'm like, why is he like? I know that he's so good at cutting back, but like, oh no, don't make that move. Like, why are you going back? Just take the no gain. Like don't go backwards. There's no room there. What are you doing? And then all of a sudden, Caleb moves like he has the ball. Wait a minute. Hold on. Did Zachariah Branch ever have the ball? And then I saw the replay and like, oh yeah, he pitched it back, and it was just sort of beautifully designed that way. It was incredibly beautiful. I thought so many of the passes downfield were great tonight. The long crosser that Caleb hits on Taj Washington, not the touchdown obviously, but the other long gain that Taj Washington had. He waits him out on the crosser, just waits for him, and then just hits the strike right before he gets out of bounds. Perfect pass. The pass to Deuce Robinson, wide open on third down. It was one of those plays where I almost think that Caleb Williams was shocked that he was so open, and throws a ball right there in his hands, and Deuce Robinson doesn't bring it in. He gets the blocked punt about a minute later in game time, so he atones for his sin there. But that would have been absolutely a big play offensively. West Texas Mike says this is why you should recap the game drive by drive. That would give you time to talk about all of it and the emotional roller coaster you were on throughout the game. Yeah, we used to do the Carcast that way. And then people started demanding the rants straight away. The classic Alicia rants. So we've gone into those things. But yeah, if we went drive by drive, we could talk about how incredible the first drive of the game was. I thought that there were 3 drives in this game that I thought were A1. The first drive of the game, I thought was, to that point, I thought was SC's best drive of the season. The other one that I was super impressed with was what would have been the drive to take the lead at the end, where they were running the ball in the fourth quarter. I thought that drive looked so good until it didn't.
The holding.
Yeah, the drive where they started at the 5 because Zachariah Branch let the ball go, like I would in Madden, but it took the weird bounce and wasn't bouncing into the end zone, and they started at the 5, and then they went 95 yards on 5 plays. That drive was incredible. There were so many good drives, and you can't really enjoy it because SC allowed a lot of drives.
And that's the thing is Caleb Williams is a joy to watch. Taj Washington is a joy to watch. Deuce Robinson looks like he
sees so much potential there.
So much potential.
Yeah.
Brendan Rice is a joy to watch.
Marshawn Lloyd,
I love him.
Not tonight, but yeah.
I'm big sad that he wasn't able to play in this game. I'm now worried about when he will be able to return because they have not revealed what this injury is, and that just gives me anxiety.
Looked like he had a limp.
I agree. I couldn't tell if... Now, the only thing is, it looked like he had a limp, but going down the tunnel, sometimes your gait is a little weird because of the slope there. So
Sure.
I'm hoping that maybe that's that. But like, there's so many dudes who are so much fun to watch, and there are so many plays in this game that were so much fun, that were just beautifully executed, creative and fun. And it sucks that that's not the focal point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if USC won this game, this conversation we're having about that flea flicker would have been in the first 15 minutes of the show.
Sure.
But it comes 90 minutes into the show because we have to deal with the defense.
And the other thing, I said it earlier, I thought this was a Heisman level performance from Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I think, hear me out, if it wasn't for him winning the Heisman last year, I think people would be talking more about him as the Heisman winner. Or maybe not as the Heisman winner, but like in the Heisman race. Because I think that he was going to be so judged based on his production. And for the first month of the season, his production was far ahead of what it was last year. And then he had the little down spell after, especially the Notre Dame game. And I think for so many people, they immediately wrote him off. And like, oh, he's had his time. We're done. We're done with Caleb Williams. He's not the Heisman winner. But like, what he did tonight absolutely should have put him back at least in New York, like to go to New York, like undoubtedly in my mind.
Yes, but Heisman voters, Heisman prognosticators pay attention to wins and losses, and that's...
Tebow won it when like
sucks.
a 5-loss season.
Yeah, but not under the same circumstances.
Why can't it be?
I really think Caleb Williams has to beat Oregon to be in the...
I think you can make it's not Caleb Williams' fault that
it's not his fault that the defense
is getting jiggle bagged.
Yeah, it's not his fault, and that should be part of the calculation here. But that's not the way that these
sure,
things
no,
operate.
I get that, but like, if it's not him, then who is it? Is it Penix? Like, I'm fine with Penix winning the Heisman. Like, I'm not against that idea. Like, and you know, we've talked about it before. Like, you win the Heisman in November, so Caleb still needs to have 2 great games, and I think that one of the things that's going to hurt him is not playing on Thanksgiving week and not playing in a championship game, because those are 2 weeks that he could have absolutely needed to have like more like great performances. He's going to have to like absolutely have the, you know, great performance of his life, you know, the next 2 weeks against Oregon and UCLA in order to come back. But yeah, and in the Gilib in the chat says RG3 won it at 9-3. Yeah,
but RG3 wasn't already a Heisman winner.
Like, yeah, which doesn't that give Caleb more credence though?
Yeah, no, I'm not. You're preaching to the choir. I think he should still be way up there. But these examples are not ones that really translate well when he's already a winner. And like, Bryce Young had
it's not a lifetime achievement award.
Bryce Young had way better stats the year after his Heisman win. He had more losses and didn't get the repeat Heisman. Like,
yes,
that was
but
really
also
what it
he
came
was
down to
going up against Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I don't think, as it stands right now, I don't think there is someone who is clearly the guy.
Oh no, there's
him.
not. But like JJ McCarthy, Marvin Harrison Jr., like all of those guys are going to have opportunity. Bo Nix,
Yes.
they're going to have opportunities to showcase where Caleb Williams is going to have to fight against the, did his defense do enough to have a 50-point game be a win situation.
Yeah. No, yeah.
And like Fred in the chat says, like, losing head to head against another Heisman frontrunner is not gonna play in Caleb's favor at all. And it's not fair because head to head quarterback matchups are completely fraudulent sort of concepts when each quarterback is going against a different defense. Although in this situation, this is as close you get to an even playing field considering the defenses that were in front of them. But
yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. All right. Two things. Mark says, "Do I get bonus points for being here 2 hours before the cast started?" Yes. Well done. We love you and love the support.
I'm very impressed with the commitment.
Yeah, and
sorry we weren't on immediately after the game. I guess in that case.
We hope you're feeling better too.
Yeah.
We've been thinking about you. Yeah. Last question comes from Sarah and Aaron, and it says, "Does anyone know what breed their dog is? I love it."
Little Jessie. Jessie is a border collie, we think. We're pretty certain she's a border collie.
Yeah,
but she is a rescue, and so we don't really know what else might be in there in terms of her breed. We're curious enough.
What else might be in there? The way you worded that, like
we're curious enough that one day, if we have money to burn, we'll get one of those embark.
We're gonna do
tests.
the paternity test. Yeah.
Just to find out. But yeah, no, she's a border collie.
Yeah, border collie husky mix is my guess, but yeah, definitely border collie is the main thing. That's how her coloration goes absolutely with the border collie too. So, all right, we'll be back on Monday nights, 5 p.m. Pacific. It'll be dark by then because the clocks are changing. So, change your clocks, all those things.
Plus side, we gain an hour of sleep, right?
Yes.
Downside, I hate it getting darker earlier.
Me too. I don't like to take the dog out when it's dark. I'm afraid of the dark. I don't like it. Lamont says, "Damn it, Michael, I asked you not to use jiggle bag tonight." I didn't want to, but the defense was jiggle bagged. I'm sorry. I'm going to bed. I can't take it anymore, Lamont says.
This was the definition of getting jiggle bagged, by the way.
Yes.
If you look in the dictionary next to jiggle bagged, it says what Washington's defense did to USC. Well, what Washington's offense did to USC's defense.
Yes. Not as a whole. SC did not get jiggle bagged in the game.
No, the defense got jiggle bagged.
The defense got jiggle bagged. Yeah. So. And SC's offense lily warped the Washington defense. Yeah. So there you go.
Orcliffe says seasonal depression and USC defense is not a good combination.
Yeah.
That is the truth. Yes.
Yeah. 100%. So, all right. Until next time, we'll see ya. See ya.
See ya.
See ya. See ya.